I'll tell you one thing, kid. This isn't my first brush with the supernatural. Far from it. Our unit has seen some action. Johannesburg in '87, Siberia in '93, Rio in '08. Last month, we spent a good 4 days knee-deep in New Yorker excrement, hunting a flock of incubi that got separated from their mistress. They turned feral. Did you know that?
Yes,
They lose control. Used to be you could parley with the succubi, avoid too much bloodshed. The rules have changed. There's no negotiating with the enemy anymore.
And that's not what we're suggesting, sir, but I'm not sure that taking our limited resources into a mano-a-mano testosterone-fueled battle royale... This is not our brief. And I shouldn't have to remind you who's running the operation. Even if we can't get a signal through the fog, it's the Para Division...
I've got scars all over, and I'm not just talking about the ones that bleed. But if I've learned one thing in the past 40 years, it's that they bleed too. Every single one of them.
Yes, they do, sir, but so do we, and we bleed out a lot faster than they... Ugh! I don't even know why I fucking bother with this fucking... What the hell are you looking at?
What's next? Giant spiders? Giant cockroaches? Fucking circus clowns?
Get to their leader, we plug it, we mop up the rest. We have to hold this point. Hold!
Well, hello there. My husband told me to expect you, so I threw on the glad rags. I used to take any excuse to socialize, do the best parties this backwards island has ever seen. But that coach turned into a pumpkin a long, long time ago. Now I just share this old pile with all my cats and all the ghosts. Even moved the furniture down to give them the run of the upstairs. And the view from those big windows. Oh, it was a peach of a view when I shared it with Ed. The peach trees are rotten through now. Things started changing with Ed back in that cold, cold summer of '71. Even before the ruckus with the Indians over that damned hole in the ground. Blue Ridge. Something happened up there. Started eating away at him, but he wouldn't admit to it. When he came home, if he came home at all, he shut himself in his study with all the books and maps. And he shut me out. And then there was the incident with the Indians. Ed didn't mean to kill anyone. It was self-defense, but he was tormented by it. He couldn't sleep. Suffered night terrors. He'd stay up, always scribbling in his books, on magazine covers, on the tablecloths, on the walls. I could hear this incessant scratching in the dead of night. After a while, I stopped asking him to come back to bed. I never did figure out where he kept all that writing. When his crew was found dead in the mine, it was the straw that broke the camel's neck, so to speak. I found him hanging in the attic. His face was the color of a ripe plum. But that's not how I remember him. Not how I want to remember him. He was a good man, my Ed. A good husband. A good friend. There's no shortage of secrets in this house, but Ed's lost his way. And his mind. Says he once knew how to put it all together. But he's just broken memories now. None of them good. Says the dreams came through and ate him up. And unless something is done, they'll eat us all. Says it's all in here somewhere, but he can't remember where. I'm sure my reputation precedes me, though only the trick-or-treaters make it past the private property sign these days. Ever since that Killian woman got run out of town, I've been the honorary island witch. A foul-tempered old widow who shut herself up in a haunted house for decades. I've always trusted my cats as better judges of character, but maybe they got me on the temper. Old? Now that I'll argue. These are Saks Fifth Avenue. But there's that temper again. My friends always told me to come back to Long Island or to Manhattan. They still do every now and again. I was a city girl once, but I'd grown to dig this weird little rock. I couldn't leave it. I couldn't leave Ed. And I'd be afraid to see what had happened to the city since. You ever think time goes so slowly, but then you look outside and it's been rushing past like out the window of an airplane? This house, well, you knew just to look at it that it was haunted, didn't you? A few coats of paint away from its best days, just like its owner. But it was never beautiful. Unlike its owner. I used to blame the Indians. Used to think they put their evil eye in the place to take our lives. And it did take our lives. Just dead quickly, and on its own sweet time with me. DeVore was the name of the man who built it. The Blue Ridge Mine as well. The story goes the Indians cursed him for his troubles, whatever he did or didn't do to rile him up, and he lost everything. He ended up dangling for the murder of his child bride. As I was saying, I used to blame the Indians, too. I called them vengeful folk who never forgave some grievance a generation old. When you look for a grudge, you find one. Oh, they were caught up in things, all right. But this house was just built bad. You picked the wrong part of the island for people watching, and the wrong season, too. I remember the old summers with those Matahando kids splashing in the river, the morning mist boiling off the marsh. Now you won't be spotting anything through this pea super. I don't get out to see people much. I don't really get out further than the porch at all. Just sitting with a book and the whippoorwills. Henry Hawthorne would come out and try to save my soul every few months. And every time I tell him it's much too late for that. He likes to sketch the house. Says he's real big on late period architecture or something. And Helen Bannerman, or worse luck, her gormless deputy, are duty-bound to check I haven't died in my sleep and stunk the place up. She calls me Ellie, and I tell her, now you look here. I remember when you were still learning to walk. Terrible shame what happened to her father. Gutted fish and tragedies, that's Kingsmouth, much as I ever made of it. Survived the storm? Well, hell, I'm a tough old bird, you ask anyone in town. I survived it the same way I always do, battening down the hatches and just sitting it out. I do recall the cats taking a real hating to this one. Hissing and spitting, tails up like chimney brushes, but they're ornery creatures. Most of them were yelling before their mom even finished biting through the cord. This fog is outstaying its welcome, though. They must have put a real dampener on the town Halloween. Haven't had a single knock at the door until you showed up. Not that I'm complaining, but I do resign myself to the visits this time of year. A couple of times I thought I spied some folks out in the gardens, but Ed said no, it was nothing. Wait for it to blow over, he said, same as that big Halloween storm in '91. We get by in peace and sadness, the ghosts and I. Like in an old folks' home, I suppose. We keep each other company. The ones up in the mine, that's a different story. A real horror story. They weren't just Ed's crew. They were our friends. My soirees were the talk of Kingsmouth. A touch of New York glamour to the sticks. That's why I had the pool dug, you know. And no, I don't mean the kind of party where you leave your keys in a bowl. I know they still linger and suffer. Must be lonely under those old, cold rocks. Back in the day, when I would still leave the house, I tried to silence those voices. I called every priest, every psychic and paranormal investigator in Maine, and not one of them stayed overnight. Even the Indians and that little Ami girl offered their native mumbo-jumbo. At the time, I thought, the nerve of it, considering the part they played in the whole mess. But I suppose they were only trying to help. Sometimes, when the wind comes, I hear those boys at the mine singing. I can never quite make out the words. Please stop by again sometime.